We will now start the regular press conference by Foreign Minister Motegi. Over to you, Minister. First of all, I'd like to talk about vaccine delivery to Thailand, Vietnam, and Taiwan. In early September, we decided to provide a total of 440,000 doses of AstraZeneca's vaccines to Thailand, Vietnam, and Taiwan. The decision to provide the vaccine was made based on a comprehensive assessment of the local infection situation, medical system, vaccination status, as well as the vaccination needs and requests of Japanese residents. In Thailand, Vietnam, and Taiwan, vaccinations, including those of Japanese residents, are currently being conducted, and it is hoped that the provision of this vaccine will further promote vaccination of local people, including Japanese residents who wish to be vaccinated. That is all from me. Then we'd like to entertain questions. If you have a question, please raise your hand, and when you're called upon, please proceed to the nearest microphone and state your name and affiliation before you state your question. Go ahead, please, Mr. Sato. From Asahi, my name is Sato. On Japan-Russia relations, I have a question. President Putin, with regard to joint economic activities between Japan and Russia, in Russia, he has unique and unprecedented proposal. In the Eastern Economic Forum, which is taking place, it is reported that the specifics may be announced there. And this is expected that it will run counter to the joint agreement that both countries' legal positions would be respected. Could I have your thoughts on this? A proposal which runs counter to Japan's position, such a proposal that has been decided, or that kind of communication being made to Japan, that has not happened. And with regard to joint economic activities, without undermining the legal positions of both countries, we will do this, and there has been an agreement on this. And toward such economic activity implementation, we would like to constructively engage in consultations with Russia. And the next question, please.
Please. TBS Kanehira is my name. About Afghanistan. With the collapse of the administration, protection of Japanese and the local staff and their families' protection, government's response. As the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, I have a question about your response. About the dispatch of SDF aircraft on August 31st press conference, Minister, you mentioned that you didn't really think it was too late. It was too late. But then ruling parties and others and the people saying that it was late. People are still talking about them. That voice has not vanished. And those families, Japanese people, the number of Japanese people who have been transported, the number is small. Some people are still calling that it's small. Local staffers in the embassy, they are still there in Afghanistan. About the evacuation, what was the biggest reason that evacuation was not conducted? What, in your opinion, compared with other countries like France, for instance, regarding the local staff, at a quite early stage, visas were issued and evacuation was promoted. Of course, there were some countries who were different, but Japan was unable to do such a thing. So inclusive of that, what's your take? Not just limited to Afghanistan, regarding Japanese people who are stationed overseas and all the related people, to securing the safety of those people, and also those people who wish to leave the country, the safe evacuation. For Ministry of Foreign Affairs is one of the most important responsibility and duty. For instance, January last year in Wuhan, COVID-19 occurred. Then more than 800 Japanese people and their family members were in Wuhan and also in Henan province. Chartered airplane was dispatched ahead of others. Japan did that. So I'm not saying that Japan was the only country that did it well, but depending on the situation each country finds itself in, measures that can be taken would be different depending on the country. For instance, not just France, member countries of NATO. In Afghanistan, in Kabul, the military were there before the fall of Kabul. They had their military there. The operation by the military could be started at an early stage. So you cannot really take all the countries' measures on the same way. The Japanese people and the people concerned, securing the safety of those people, and for those people who wish to do so, evacuate, continue. We believe that this is one of the most important duty of us. But there are some difficulties. For Kabul, in just 11 days, it fell. The government lost control. Who actually anticipated that? Very few, I believe, including those people in the Biden administration. August 26th, around the Kabul airport, 170 people were involved in the terrorist attacks. There were some dangers of terrorist attacks, but on that specific day, at what time it could happen, it was, I think, impossible to predict that. As Japan, we knew the due date of the withdrawal of the US military, at what timing, with what measures, evacuation should be conducted in the safest and swiftest way. With that, we conducted our operation. Regarding the Japanese nationals, towards the end of August, those people who remained in Kabul, Afghanistan, number was few. For all of those Japanese nationals, did you want to leave the country immediately? We did that inquiry, not just once. As the situation became quite difficult, it would be difficult to do so in September. We made that communication to those people. For those people who wished to do so, there was this one person who wanted to evacuate using the SDF aircraft. We were able to evacuate this person. Unfortunately, local staff and those people who are related to JICA, quite a number of people remain in the country. The safest, swiftest ways of evacuation. To that end, we would like to continue our support. Looking back on the 26th, without that particular incident, yes, we still feel that, but unfortunately, terrorist incident occurred in the city, and also Taliban established so many checking points. The situation was very chaotic. Continuing the operation would have been very dangerous. I still believe in that way. Unfortunately, within August, the evacuation was not fully completed. Many officials of embassy, the local staff, and JICA-related persons are still remaining in the country. So what would be the safest method? And what would be the swiftest method? We would like to keep that in mind, and we would like to study the support measures.
The next question, please. Nishimura from Radio France. On border measures, I have a question. Recently, many foreign athletes, sports athletes and artists have been able to enter the country. But when it comes to foreign students, they are still unable to enter the country. What is the reason for this? Well, Japan is under the impact of COVID-19, so new entry from all countries and regions of foreigners is temporarily suspended. Having said this, if entry into the country is of an urgent or public nature, Based on the premise that sufficient quarantine measures will be taken, we have made the decision to allow them to enter on an individual basis. Artists would be included in this category. With regard to foreign students, this is important from the perspective of internationalizing Japanese universities and education and research. So based on the status of infection inside and outside of the country, we like to examine the situation.
Yes? The same question? Excuse me. Regarding the artists, the urgency for artists, it's difficult to understand. For instance, for 1 year, the project, 1 year project for artists, exchange students entering the university, why the emergency was higher for those artists? What was your judgment? It's different. Sports athletes and academicians, because you cited such names, I said what I said. Artists, we are not saying that all the artists can enter the country. For instance, among the artists, as I said, when there is emergency or public nature for their entrance into the country on individual basis, yes, we allow them to enter.
Please, go ahead. A follow-up question to my previous question. If that is the case, presently, the embassy staff are in the locale compared to other countries. I believe it was 14 people that were transported by the CF. Comparing the number 14 and the number for other countries, why is the number so small? Korea has a larger number. And there are countries that have far larger numbers of different digits. The 26th of August terrorist activity was something experienced by all. This was a hindrance factor. Why is the number small for Japan? Very flatly put, stated from the national sentiment. Those people that were working in the embassies, aren't you turning the cold shoulder to them? Of course, I understand the priority of protecting Japanese and protecting stakeholders. But compared to other countries, why did it turn out the way it did? The national understanding, do you think you'll be able to win over and have the nation understand this? First of all, in the United States, there are U.S. nationals who are still in Afghanistan, and you are aware of that. First and foremost, protecting Japanese, that is of foremost importance, and we have been taking the same stance in the past. And for those Japanese that wish to depart, it ended up being one person. But for this person, we were able to ensure safe departure. Now the remaining embassy, local nationals and JICA-related persons, and there are people of other nationalities. And there are countries where they have a larger number remaining, but then there are countries where a large number have departed. So that depends on the individual situation and the measures taken then there. Maybe there was a military presence there already. They were ready to conduct operations, or the routes to the airport must perhaps could have been relevant. And it may have been safe, or it may not have been safe. There was a judgment involvement here. And with a lot of risk, some have departed, and it turned out to be successful. And if the results are good, it's not that all is good. As to whether it was really, truly safe, or whether it was the fastest and the most prompt, we need to verify each example. But at least at the present point in time, the embassy, local staff, and others are remaining. So we have to secure safety. And for those who wish to depart in various forms, we would like to examine measures to support them.
Next question, please. IWJ Chula is my name. About Taliban, they said that they would like to have the diplomatic relations with Japan. From Japan's unique view, are you going to approve them as the state, or are you going to follow this position by the United States about the Japanese people and also the protection of Japanese people and those people who are cooperating? What about the extending support to them? How do you communicate? Regarding the situation in Afghanistan going forward, those people who wish to depart the country, safe passage for those people, and also public safety situation in Afghanistan. And probably as Taliban establishes the new administration in the new government, what will be the policies that be taken? In the past, Islam, very strict regime. Are they going back to that kind of a severe regime? Or, as Taliban is saying, in a way responding to the voices of the international community, women, girls, inclusive of all these people, human rights will be respected more, freedom, liberty will be respected more? Is that the kind of a society they're going to develop? It's not words we are watching. We have to watch what they do, what Taliban does. Then we would like to make a judgment.
Sato-san, last question, please. Sato from Asahi Shimbun. Changing the subject, the LDP presidential election. Yesterday, at a factional meeting, as a faction, a consolidated approach is important. That is what was said. Do you plan to support Prime Minister Suga? And the reason for this is, please. I'm a presently serving minister. So we'd like to conclude the press conference at this point. Thank you very much.